Welcome, this is Jennifer, and I'm thankful you're here. I haven't used alcohol inks in some time, so I thought I'd break them out. Got a few requests to use them again also. And today I have a new technique for you that I call alcohol ink press. This creates really cool effects like you can see here, and it creates two backgrounds at once, so you can make multiple cards in one sitting. I will start out by doing some basic backgrounds with this technique, but then I'll step it up to do cool effects like this one. Then at the end of the video, I will turn the backgrounds into different cards. So let's get started with the backgrounds. For this, I'm using Tim Holtz heavyweight Yupo paper. That's definitely my favorite to use with alcohol inks, but you could use alcohol ink cardstock for this if you prefer. I'm also using Tim Holtz alcohol inks, just the regular alcohol ink and the pearl. You could use either version or any type of alcohol inks here. I really like the pearl because it does add a shine. So I like to mix them with the regular alcohol inks too. If you're new to alcohol inks, I do recommend starting with the pearls because I think that shine is really worth it. I also have Tim Holtz blending solution. That's what the big bottle is. It's a clear product that helps to blend the colors and get them moving. So I have a few different colors of alcohol ink here. One is regular and two are pearls. And I'm putting onto my Yupo paper some blending solution first. I like to start with that so the colors move right away. I'm putting down the different colors of alcohol ink. You can use whatever you want here. Again, you can tell that these are pearl except for that bright blue along the bottom. All right, so now I have the blending solution and alcohol inks on there. I'm taking another piece of Yupo paper and pressing it on top. This just smushes the ink together and allows you to create two backgrounds and some really cool effects when you pull it apart. Now I let that sit there for about 3 minutes or so, as long as I was patient enough to do, and pulled it apart and check out this cool effect. Now you can use your alcohol ink air blower. This is the tool here from Tim Holtz. I call it my puffer tool. And you can puff some air onto these to kind of freeze where the color is. Well, I wanted this background to be more intense, not as soft as it turned out. So I'm adding more alcohol ink to it, and I'll do the press technique again. It's really up to you if you just press this together once or twice or even 3 times. Totally up to you. Each time you'll get a different look. So I'm pressing this together. You'll notice some of the alcohol ink might squish out the sides. I'll show you later what to do with that because I came up with it later. I gave that a few minutes to sit and I pulled it apart, and look at this. We get the color moving. If you're not happy with the spot, just pick it up and press it down again. Now I thought this looked really cool, especially the one on the left. The one on the right has that kind of line down the center because I dropped it on the edge, but I really like how we got this mix of color and kind of some streaks in there. I'll show you how to intensify those streaks later on. I'm going to set these aside to dry for a bit, and then I'll bring it back here and show you. This is what it looks like when it's dry. You can see there's shimmer to it thanks to using the alcohol ink pearls. Now let's do another example. This time I'm putting more of the bold color down at first, so I'll have bold results right away. And you can see I'm putting a little bit of pink and purple pearl alcohol ink too, so we get that shimmer. Now I'll press this down, and I like to use my fingers or the edge of my reverse tweezers to press it around, and I use the reverse tweezers to pull them apart. You can use the puffer to just kind of freeze the color where it is by puffing air onto it. But I decided I wanted even more color than this. You could leave it as is. The nice thing about this technique is you can change it just by adding a little bit more alcohol ink or even just blending solution. Then you smush it together once again, just press it down firmly and make sure you're pressing all over. You don't want any air bubbles under there. And there when I pull it off, look at those streaks. I just think that's super cool. But let's press it again and really make sure that we get those squeezed together. And then we pull it apart, and I am just loving these looks that you get from this technique. You can kind of see those little streak effects that you get from the pearlescent, and you have two backgrounds that are very similar, just mirror images. Okay, let's do another blending solution first, and then lots of bold color here. Now this time, I didn't wait a few minutes. After I pressed the two pieces together, I just gave it about 20 seconds, and it didn't really seem to matter. I'm just kind of pressing those together, then I'll peel them apart with my reverse tweezers, and look at that. This time I decided to stop here. I use my puffer to kind of stop the movement and blending of color and kind of freeze it where it is. And look at the results. I just think that is so cool. Because I used the pearl alcohol inks, you can see that pearlescent that the light picks up, especially in those little streaks there on the bottom. And I love how these are almost symmetrical thanks to this press technique. Now, one of the things I really like about this is each time you do a press, you get a different look. So if you're not happy with the first results, you can do it again and get completely different results. I am an overthinker when it comes to creating backgrounds like this. So this is fun because I never know what I'm going to get. Now, I thought this was really cool. I can freeze it kind of by doing a little bit of air puffing, but I felt it looked like my last example. So I thought I would just do some more with this. I'm pressing it down and getting the buildup of color on the edge towards the middle, and there we get a completely different look. I do notice that the more presses you do, the more of like a polished stone look you get from the technique, where it looks like granite, I guess. So here I'm putting down more color, pressing it together, and I'm going to end up with a really bold background, which is what I was going for. Just be sure to every time really press those backgrounds together so the alcohol ink really smooshes together and you don't end up with any air bubbles. And check out those cool effects that you get in different areas. These are 5x7 pieces, so I can make multiple cards from it, or I can just cut out the areas that I like most. So there are a couple others that I made here too. Okay, now let's step up this technique and add some alcohol ink alloy. If you don't have alloy, you could use mixative here too, but the alloy is really cool. The alloys are like a metallic add that you can put into your alcohol inks. And the way that it moves is really cool, especially with this technique. I start with the blending solution and then a few colors of alcohol ink and alcohol pearl ink. Then I put on 3 drops of the alloy. You can do more or less, it's totally up to you. And I press that all together. I'm just going to move this to the side and those can sit together while I start another pair. This is one of the ways that I like to do things when I'm mass producing. Just do certain steps at once. So again, blending solution, different alcohol inks. I use some pearl also, and then that alloy, which is, I'm using the Foundry today, but you could use any of the alloys. They come in different metallic colors. This time I used a bit more of the alloy. Make sure you press that around. Now I decided all that alcohol ink that's kind of squeezing out the side, I'm picking that up with an extra piece of Yupo paper. And I'll end up doing this with all of mine, and it'll build up a bunch of color on this Yupo paper that I can use as a background. So instead of it going to waste, we'll use it for something else. So now I'll pull that one apart. Wasn't real happy with it, so I'm just pressing it together a couple more times, and look at that. I love that the alloy adds to the like kind of streaky look that you get, and it looks like lightning in the background. It's absolutely beautiful and such a cool effect, especially for night skies. Now let's go to the other pair that I created. Now this one, the first few times I wasn't thrilled because I used some unique colors here. I used purple, coral, and pink, and I wasn't thrilled. The nice thing about this technique is if you're not thrilled with how it first turns out, you can add more alcohol ink and try again. That's the joy of alcohol ink, and especially this technique. I also feel this technique is good for folks like me who tend to overthink their backgrounds. You kind of get what you get with this, and it's fun to try new things and new looks. So I'm picking up the extra that oozes out the side using that extra piece of Yupo paper, and I'll just let that sit for a couple minutes while I start another background. So this is one of those crafty sessions that I did where I made a ton of backgrounds at once, and then I turned them into a bunch of cards, but I still have a bunch of backgrounds left over for future card sessions. Even the smallest scraps of alcohol ink background really add a lot to a card. So you could do little borders, little die cut pieces, anything. So I'll get a lot of use from these backgrounds. All right, so I pulled that apart and check out that result. It's fun to see what you get. And when you add that alloy, it really intensifies the unique looks that you get with this technique. And each time you get a different look, which makes it even more fun. I think that's one of the big reasons folks like alcohol inks, all the different looks you can get, and the fact that if you're not happy with the result, you can redo it. Like this one, after it dried, I decided I didn't like it, so I just put some blending solution on it, press them together, pull them apart again, and check out this result. Now, I was happier with this. I like those streaks and mix of color, especially right there in the middle with the purple. I just thought that was cool. So this is what it looks like when it's dry. Wouldn't those be cool framed right next to each other because they're mirror images? Super cool technique, and you can cut out the pieces that you like the best. I decided I didn't like that purple and blue when it dried as much, so I just put more blending solution on, not even any more alcohol ink, just more blending solution, pressed it together, and then I was happier with the result that I got that time. You can get creative with how you pull them apart too. That will affect the movement of the ink that you get in the final result. Now you may notice that once in a while I'm using a heat gun to dry these. I'm not using it to apply heat. I'm waving it above to apply air, and I'm keeping it moving so I don't have heat applying to these, just a little bit of air to help it dry. And then here, check out these. I did several presses with these, and it ends up giving you these little areas of color that I just think are super cool. Again, you can see how the alloy adds that shine to it, and you can see like puddles of it and how it just kind of streaks across when you pull it apart. Such a fun way to create unique backgrounds. And even better, you're getting two backgrounds at once. Now let's create some cards using these backgrounds. Now this first card shows a lot of a background, and I share a really cool technique to make it look like you have a shadow die for a background die. For this card, I'm using a background die from the newest Hero Arts My Monthly Hero Kit. This is for December 2021. This kit has a large 6x6 cling stamp, the large die set that you see on the bottom, and a 4x6 stamp set, along with some accessories, inks, and cardstock. I like the Hero Arts kits because the value is so much higher than the cost, and it can be used over and over again. I will be using that stamp set for some of the sentiments for today's cards. I'll use that background stamp on one of the cards. But first, let's start with the die, the big background die that you see there. Also notice the black cardstock that comes in here is the Hero Arts Pitch Black cardstock, which if you haven't tried it, I encourage you to do so. It's the best black dark cardstock. So I use that background die to cut twice from white cardstock and once from black cardstock. You'll see there are a bunch of little dies that you can add to the scene, but I'm just using the background die as is. So here we have one cut from white cardstock. I love the detail of this scene. I want to make it look like this black die cut has a white shadow die cut behind it. So I'm putting adhesive all over the back of the black die cut. Then I will put this on top of one of the white background die cuts. It's the same shape die cut, but I'm going to offset it. So notice on the inside edge, the white is peeking out on the left-hand side and on the bottom. So it's kind of shifted diagonally. Now this looks cool as is. It kind of looks like it has a highlight along the top edge, but we're going to glue another white die cut to the back and shift it in the other direction. And this will give it kind of a white shadow all the way around. So this time I'll shift it so that on the inside edge of the frame, you'll see the white peeking out at the top and on the right-hand side. So now if you look at the inside edge of the frame, there's white all the way around. And all those intricate areas in the center has white like towards the top, towards the bottom, and towards the sides. So by using two white die cuts that are both shifted a little bit in opposite directions, it looks like we had a shadow die for this intricate background die. But really, I just used the one. Now we can just glue this onto one of our alcohol ink backgrounds. I ended up liking this one a lot. This is one that I did with one press of ink. So I'm putting glue along the entire background of this and then adding it to the area that I like most of the background. By the way, when I'm gluing die cuts down, I use my MISTI pressure tool, that was the thing in my hand, to really press it down and into place. And I will link to that pressure tool below. Once dry, I'm trimming off the excess and I can save those little scraps to create another card in the future. Now I have a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 inch top folding white note card, and I'll glue our frame right onto that. This card really didn't take that long, but it looks like it did. That alcohol ink background doesn't take long to make, and those die cuts are intricate, and so it looks like it's complicated, but it really isn't. For the sentiment, I used this new Hero Arts Wherever You Go stamp set. I loved the sentiment that says, "Wishing we lived closer." I white heat embossed that on black cardstock and matted it with white cardstock and glued it towards the bottom right. I didn't get a chance to use the other images in this stamp set, but I think they would work really well with these night skies also. Okay, so here is the completed card. I did add some iridescent stars to the background. These are little star confettis that have a holographic look to it. They're from Trinity Stamps. Lucy's Cards also has some. And I think this is a must-have accent for card makers. The little pack of these confetti will last a long time, and look at how they catch the light when you glue them in a background. Just with the light, little tilt of the card, it catches a light and really steps up a card. So I glued a few of those in the background, and that's it. By the way, this background die, you can cut little different parts of it out to change the scene. Even that little string up along the top would be great as a string of lights on a card. So think about the different ways you can use a die to get new looks. But here I just use it as is. Okay, let's move on to another background. This time I stepped the background up by doing a bit of alcohol ink lift. Now this is the background stamp that comes in the kit that I showed you earlier, and I've put it into my MISTI stamping tool. I had this blue alcohol ink background from before that I wasn't thrilled with, so I thought I'd change it up a little bit. I'm using the Tim Holtz Alcohol Lift ink. Now this ink pad is fantastic. If you have alcohol inks, I encourage you to invest in this ink pad. So I'm inking up the stamp. It's a clear ink, and I'll stamp that onto an alcohol ink background and press it firmly. Now when I pull this off, the stamp will have some ink on it, which you can use if you want to. But what I'm really looking to do today is remove ink from our blue background. So I just kind of dab that with a dry cloth and rub off the excess. And can you see the pattern of the stamp starting to show up? Now you can repeat this process as many times as you want to intensify that pattern. So I'll have this little neighborhood scene that'll be stamped on this alcohol ink background. Again, it's lifting the ink away. So I press this down, it lifts the ink away, and now I can dab that with a dry cloth and then eventually rub the entire surface, and you'll start to see it appear like magic. It's a really cool technique. I'll actually make a couple cards from this. For the first one, I'm creating a frame for an area of that background using the Paper Rose lots and lots of rectangle dies. You can see the different rectangle dies there to the left. They all have a different pattern to them. It's a great set. So now I'm gluing one of those die cut frames to the area that I like the most on our background. I'll save the rest for later. I thought I'd add to this neighborhood scene some more houses. This is the Hero Arts Neighborhood Houses Fancy Die Set. You can see it's a simple die set with lots of houses, trees, and a bird over on the left. What I like about these is it makes little cut lines for the door, the window, and the details on the house, but it doesn't cut a ton of pieces. So if you want to, you can add color with markers to the different areas, which saves a lot of time from die cutting lots of little pieces, assembling them together. Now for my card, I decided to do all the die cutting from white, and I doubled up die cut so they stand up a little bit. And I also folded the doors open for a bit of dimension. For a sentiment, I used the Spellbinders Mix and Match Sentiment die set. This is a new favorite of mine. It has lots of basic words in a nice cursive and the shadow for each word also. You can build up different sentiments with this, but for this card, I'm just using the basic hello. I die cut the shadow for the word hello from white cardstock and the word hello itself from black cardstock and glued it into the sky of the card. I also added this to a white note card. It's about 5.5 inches wide, about 3 3/4 inches tall, so a little bit smaller than usual. I like how these little doors open, and there's lots of detail on those houses, but it doesn't distract from the technique that we have in the background. Now on this card and many others, I added little heart accents using scraps of alcohol ink. To do this, I use the Fawn Hearts and Stars Skinny Tag die. This has 3 different size hearts and 3 different size stars, great for adding accents to your cards. Okay, now let's create a bunch of simple design cards that show off these cool backgrounds that we created with the alcohol inks. Now with this example, I wanted a lot of that sky to show. For this, I used a new Hero Arts die set called the Tri-Fold Edge City Fancy die set. There are 3 borders that cut those 3 edges you see along the top there. Now, I have used a tri-fold die set like this in the past, and it was like a winter themed one. I'll link to that video up here on the top right if you want to see how to use these dies to create a tri-fold card. Now, I'm not doing the tri-fold card today. Instead, I'm just layering these up. And in fact, I skipped the middle layer and only used the top one and the bottom one. That's the nice thing about this die set. There are 3 different looking dies, and you can use them together or separate, mix and match however you want. So this is a 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch top folding white note card. I glued my alcohol ink background onto that, and now I'm putting these 2 borders. I did double up die cuts to build up some dimension so that each of these layers stood out a little bit more. By doubling up the dimension, it helps these white die cuts to stand out against the background. Now for the sentiment, I used this Hero Arts City Park Heroscape stamp set. This is what it looks like. It's a great layering set that you can use to create little scenes, and I like the sentiments. Well, I'm just using the sentiment, "Wish You Were Here," from this set. I think that's a great sentiment to send to someone on a card. And it works great with all of these kind of city or neighborhood cards I'm doing today. So I stamped that sentiment with black ink and added some more of those little stars to the sky, and you can see how it catches the light. And I also added a tiny heart die cut to one of the buildings that was from a leftover alcohol ink scrap. I like how the alloy alcohol inks that we have in the background really add to the shine and to the cool effect that you get by doing this alcohol ink press technique. It's such a beautiful look, especially in real life. Definitely worth trying. By keeping my die cutting to white cardstock, it allows the background to shine. Now here is another example using that border die set, but I only used one of the borders, and I stamped a sentiment from the kit right below it in black ink. Again, I have a lot of that sky showing just so I can show off that alcohol ink background. Look at that top in the blue area. It looks like lightning or northern sky. It's just such a cool effect. And then, of course, I added those iridescent stars. No bulk to those, and it gives a lot of sparkle. Okay, now this next design happened to be my favorite, so I made many of these. The other nice thing is you can get multiples of these cards from one of those alcohol ink backgrounds. I'm using the Hero Arts City Window Fancy die. Now there are many different window dies like this from Hero Arts, so you could do whatever theme you wanted, but there's something about this city that I really feel works great for like Wish You Were Here or Missing You cards. Now I use that die to cut from a piece of black cardstock that is 4 by 5.5 inches. Then I have 3 pieces of white cardstock that's slightly smaller. I'm holding it to the back of the black die cut piece and tracing that circle. I then have a larger circle die from my stash that I'm using to cut out around that pencil line. And I'll do this with all 3 of those pieces. This is so I can build up dimension behind the black. I like to build up the dimension, but you could glue this flat if you prefer. So now I'll glue this to the back of our black piece, and this will start the dimension building. But notice when I flip it over, the white peaks out there. So I'm just going to use my scissors to kind of cut that little part away so it doesn't peek through the windows of that die cut. Now there are many ways you could do this. You could use foam tape, you could use scraps of cardstock along the side and the bottom, but this was the method that worked fastest for me because I could die cut a bunch of white cardstock with that circle die and start layering them up for all of my cards. So now I'll do that again, hold a piece of white cardstock to the back, then flip it over, trace that circle, and then die cut with the larger circle around that pencil line. Now this is inexpensive white cardstock I'm using. You can use scraps for this. I just don't have any white cardstock scraps left, but you could even use color. No one will ever see it. I usually keep all the pieces when I mess up stamping to use for layers also. Next, I'm cutting out the portion of this alcohol ink background that I like the best so that that part shows through the window of our card. And I'm saving those scraps. I'll use those up. One of the things that I do like to do with my alcohol ink scraps is create a background of a card where it's just strips of different color alcohol ink and then put a die cut word on top of it and you're good to go. You don't have to do much when there's this much color and interest to it. Now here's another where I'm using a different background. Same design. I build up those 3 layers to the back and now I just glue the alcohol ink piece behind the window. So I did several cards this way because I really like how this created that focal point window of the alcohol ink background, and I could pick the area that I liked the best. I white heat embossed a sentiment on the black cardstock. That is from the stamp set that I showed you earlier. Added those stars to the sky, and also a die cut alcohol ink heart. I put all of this on a top folding white note card that is 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. And I love how this really pulls your eye towards that alcohol ink background. Now the sentiment on this one is from the stamp set that's included in that My Monthly Hero kit. So this time I used black cardstock against our alcohol ink background. I feel like by using neutrals like black or white or a soft gray or even like a silver really allows the focus to be on the color that you created with the alcohol inks. Now this time I used white cardstock for the front panel and a stamp from the My Monthly Hero kit. And I put all of this onto a purple note card that matched the alcohol ink that I have there in the center of the window. I was really needing some more cards that are just kind of general, thinking about you, miss you cards, wish you were here. So I made several of those today. But you could change up this design and maybe stamp some fireworks in the sky. There are many stamp companies that have firework stamps, and make this a celebration or birthday card. You could even use like a Santa and reindeer die cut. I have a small one from, I think it's Memory Box, and put that in the sky, and then it would be a holiday card. So I really like dies like this that you can change up the theme just by adding or taking away little things. Now remember earlier I had the other half of this background where I used the alcohol ink lift pad along with the background stamp. I thought that worked great in this window also. Okay, now for a completely different design, I just wanted to share more ideas of how to use these backgrounds. This time I'm using the Hero Arts Thank You Message cover plate. Now, there are a lot of different dies like this. Hero Arts has some holiday ones, they have some birthday ones, and it's a great one to use for quick card over a colorful background. On this card, I also used a sentiment from this combo from Hero Arts. It's the Signpost Stamp and Cut XL. So this stamp set and die set are sold together. I used one of the sentiments, lots of great basic ones in this that are nice and bold. And they can also be used on the dies cuts from the die set that you see there to create a little signpost on your card. But I just used the Sending Hugs and white heat embossed that on a black cardstock strip. I die cut the Thank You So Much background die from white cardstock. I did that 3 times and glued it together for dimension, and then glued it onto our alcohol ink background. You can see those cool effects showing through the letters. I also added white die cut hearts to the center of the letters, and that's it. Nothing else. I feel like that alcohol ink really steps up this simple card and adds a lot of interest. The best part of all of this is I have all of these backgrounds left over to still use. You could use them in the ways I did today, or you can die cut them anything you want. And if you're not happy with one later on, just put more blending solution and alcohol ink on it and you can reactivate it and get a new look. So I hope you'll try this. If you've never experimented with alcohol inks, I encourage you to do so. I'll link to a basic alcohol ink video up here on the top right you can check out if you want to. I appreciate you watching. If you're interested in anything I used in this video, I will have it linked below in my YouTube description. Also at the end here, I'll link to a couple other videos that are related to this that may be helpful. Please do me a favor and hit subscribe and the bell to get notifications if you haven't done so. I'll see you again soon with another video. Take care.